Load up at the moment, and we are live at the moment. So why don't we get started? HPA, or high pressure air powered airsoft guns have become incredibly popular over the last 4 to 5 years or so. However, there are a lot of players out there who are either unfamiliar with the system or, again, just don't know about it, who think that HPA is unsafe, that it's used by people who are either going to cheat or use it to bend the rules in their favor. However, that obviously isn't the case. HPA is perfectly safe if the right safety procedures are put in place. So in today's video, I want to talk with Rich Lord of Wolverine Airsoft. Rich, thank you so much for coming on today. I really do appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
Of course. And in today's video, we're just going to talk about some things that have to do with HPA safety to make sure that field staff and referees are able to make sure that HPA is fun and safe for everyone. Because there are a lot of fields out there that have just gone and banned HPA entirely, which I personally think isn't the best move because I don't need to be in business to tell you that pulling away customers is never a good idea. But I think one of the biggest concerns that people have with HPA, and this is something that we've seen whenever new systems have come out. I remember back in the day, people had the same worries about Sistema when the PTWs came out. And that was their concern that people could, on the fly, change either their FPS or their rate of fire or whatever it may be to give them an advantage and break the rules. However, with proper safety, that really isn't the case with HPA. So, Rich, would you mind explaining the idea behind tournament locks and how you can stop this issue right at the regulator while you're chronoing at a field?
Sure. So HPA is the output energy is controlled by the pressure that the regulator is operating at. So with an AEG, generally your output energy is controlled by your spring, which, as you mentioned, lots of systems now, not just Sistema, but many just standard AEGs have quick change spring guides, which you can very quickly and with very basic tools or sometimes no tools at all change the output energy. So this is the difference is that with HPA you don't actually change the hardware, you just change the setting. So you change the output pressure. Really, virtually any regulator that's made for airsoft now includes a tournament lock system with the regulator. And what that does is it gives you a way to do two things: to make it so that the player cannot change the output pressure and the output, as a result, the output energy on the field without breaking the tournament lock, and then to make it obvious that they have broken it. So many use zip ties, and it's just a simple way to lock the system so that you can't change the output pressure without breaking the zip tie. And if you want to go an additional level of security, we see fields that get zip ties printed up with their name on the zip tie, right? So somebody can't just have a generic zip tie, break it, and then re-zip tie it. You have to actually have one with the field's name on it. So really, it's just a very simple mechanism. There's a number of different styles of tournament lock. But virtually any regulator has a tournament lock built in, and once it's locked, you can't change the output pressure on the regulator. So really, you're set to go.
Yeah, so I personally, using the zip tie when I was a field staff member, that was the way that I liked. We had ones with a little name tag that we could write our initials on to prevent someone from, just clipping that off real quick, their multi-tool, and throwing on a different one. So that is something that I personally think that every field should be doing. Right at chrono, you're going to, get the gun set up, you're going to throw the tournament lock in there, and then you don't have to worry about the player at all. And I know that there are some systems that don't have a regulator on the tank versus they're internally regulated. They do make systems for those as well, for those of you who are curious, which will actually lock the gun up to prevent that from happening. So while we're on the topic of chronoing and we're at that station, I know I've seen a lot of fields out there and a lot of events. America Milsim comes to mind specifically, where they have AEGs at one chrono station, and then they have gas guns, so HPA, and gas blowback rifles at another one. And the way that they do that, I believe they are measuring joule creep. Now, this is something that is a little bit more complicated. Would you be able to explain that without getting, too crazily into it? Because I understand it's a very large topic to cover.
So what they're measuring is not exactly joule creep, but let's talk about joule creep first, and then we'll talk about why they do that. the good, the bad, the ugly about why that happened. So jewel creep is a little difficult for people to understand because intuitively they feel like it's the same gun. Why should changing the weight of the BBs make any difference in how hard it hits? Or they think we haven't gotten past this thinking in terms of FPS, right? People think, well, the faster the BB goes, the more it's going to damage it's going to do. But you're forgetting the BB weight, right? It matters how much that BB weighs, how fast it's going. So the simplest illustration that I use for people as they're trying to understand jewel creep is, let's say that I'm going to throw a ball at you, right? Because that's basically what we're doing. Now, I'm going to throw it. All right. I'm going to give you two options. I can throw a wiffle ball at you, which is very light, or I can throw a baseball at you, which is very heavy. Which would you rather me throw at you?
I do not want to get hit with the baseball personally.
Right. And everybody intuitively knows that. Now, let me ask you this. Did I get stronger when I threw the baseball?
No, you still have the same throwing ability. You're just throwing something a little bit heavier.
Correct. So it's the same way with the guns, right? The gun isn't stronger, but the way the physics works of it, by giving the gun a heavier projectile, you allow it to generate more energy. Just like by giving me a heavier projectile, I'm able to generate more energy. It has to do with the amount of work that I can do on a heavy object versus a light object. So even though I probably could throw the wiffle ball just as fast, or maybe even a little bit faster than I could the baseball, at least when it's leaving my hand, intuitively that you would rather me throw a wiffle ball at you than a baseball. So that's what jewel creep is basically. It's a gun's ability to output more energy when you use a heavier projectile. And HPA is not the only system that does this. Gas blowbacks do it a lot as well. AEGs will do it to some extent, just not as much. So this is a universal phenomenon across airsoft. It's just that HPA systems tend to do it more to a greater degree than some other systems do. So when the difficult where it comes into play with chronoing guns and enforcing energy limits is that many, and really I'd say virtually all HPA users do not use lightweight BBs.
That's something that I've noticed as well.
Right, because you're running a high quality system. You're going to give it high quality ammunition, right? So you're not going to run .2s. You're probably not going to run .25s unless the field requires it. But you're going to run .28s, .3s, .36s, .40s, something like that. And many fields have not, and game organizers have not adjusted their rule set to get past chronoing with .2s. All their rules are set up still as 400 FPS with .2s or 350 FPS with .2s. So what some fields and some event organizers have done to try to get around that is they have the HPA systems chrono with heavier BBs at a lower velocity. So they essentially calculate what the velocity, and this is very easy to do. There are calculators that will do this for you. And this is not a bad system, but they calculate the velocity you would need with, say, a 0.32 gram BB to be at the same energy as that 400 with .2s that is their standard, right? And then they have the HPA systems chrono separately from the AEGs. And that's fine. That's better than nothing, right? Because you're chronoing with the BB weight they'll probably actually be using, or at least something very close to it. Personally, I think the better solution would just be to chrono everybody with heavyweight BBs, because you can chrono the AEGs with heavyweight BBs as well. You're not really losing anything, and then it just simplifies everything, and everybody's chronoing with the same thing. But that is it's a better method than just chronoing everything with 0.2s, because we've been at events that literally chrono everybody, even up to bolt action snipers with 0.2s, and they'll chrono at 550 with 0.2s for the snipers. But when you have energies that high already, the amount of joule creep that you get with an HPA or a gas system is very high. So you really need to be chronoing with a BB weight that's close to what's going to be used on the field.
That's something that I've always found interesting because in my HPA guns, I always run at least a 3.2. Like you said earlier, most HPA users are using a higher gram BB, and AEG users are as well. I mean, I typically notice that the lighter weight are with newer players, but for most experienced players, typically they are running, even in most of the AEGs that come stock at like that 330 to 350 range, they'll still run 2.8s or 3.2s. I run 2.8s out of my VFC personally. So I definitely agree with you that would be better to chrono with the heavier BBs because, the joule creep is a concern, and I do appreciate you explaining it for everyone. But something else I wanted to ask while we're on the whole topic of what field staff can do, what are some things that you've noticed that fields do or events do that are positive for HPA that you wish more fields would do?
First one is tournament locking. You'd be shocked how many fields and event organizers don't tournament lock or don't tournament lock correctly. Tournament locking is not difficult. If you have questions about how to do it, you can come ask us. We'll be happy to walk you through how to do that process. But I mean, I've seen places that don't tournament lock at all, that the staff is not properly trained on how to tournament lock, so they do something that is completely ineffective as a tournament lock. So that's one thing. Spot checking on the field. Just equip your field marshals with handheld chronographs and have them just randomly spot check people throughout the game. Right? It's a very very simple but effective way to catch people that are cheating. But the biggest one is stiff penalties. And this is the biggest thing that I talk to field owners about on a regular basis, because many times I hear from field owners, oh, we're having problems with this. It's all, and we can't get it to stop. And yes, the question, well, what's the penalty for you find somebody that's cheating, right? That's turned up their regulator or swapped their spring. What's the penalty for it? And it's, well, they have to sit out for 30 minutes. Okay. What happens if they do it again? Well, then they have to sit out for an hour. Okay. And what happens if they do it again? Well, then they're gone for the day. Right. It's this whole long, the penalty has to be severe enough that people are actually going to take it seriously. And I understand, because the field owners or event organizers will come back and say, well, I don't want to drive my customers away, right? We talked about this a little bit earlier. Yeah. But my response to that is that you are going to bring far more customers in by effectively enforcing the rules and maintaining a fun atmosphere and safe atmosphere for everybody to play in. You don't want those people that are going to act that way. You don't want them there anyway. Yes, they paid for today, and yes, they'll keep coming back, but they'll drive more people away. So you have to maintain a long-term view, and you have to actually...
That's something that I've noticed as well, is that and while getting rid of that one person, you didn't get their $25 admission, if he's preventing a group of 5 people from coming, well, you just made an extra $100. So one, you're keeping the rest of your customer base happy, because you shouldn't be appealing to the people that are going to be toxic at your field. You should be appealing to the people that are there to have fun while still following the rules. So I definitely agree that that's one of the biggest things that we notice here in the Northeast, because we aren't exactly a hub for airsoft in any sort of way. So there's a lot of fields that don't pull a huge customer base to begin with. Those fields that only get 20 people on a Saturday, or they're afraid to, kick 2 or 3 people out because, they're either going to badmouth them or they're going to do whatever that would drive away their business. But I personally think, and I agree with you, by curbing these players who are, being toxic, you're going to bring more people to your field. There are fields that I try to avoid as much as I can because of this same issue, because either the referees are being unfair in their rulings, if they're just not doing a good job and not actually, checking. Like, I can't stand the places that just have referees sitting in towers because they're not actively enforcing the rules. So I think that that is one of the biggest things that we have to address. And I know it's a little bit scary to think about telling players to leave if you own a field that doesn't have, the biggest turnout every week. But by getting rid of those toxic players, you will bring in better players that you want at your field. You don't want the people that are going to be causing issues for you and giving you a headache. You're going to want those people that are going to be respectful, following the rules, and encouraging people to come back to your field for a good time.
Absolutely. I think we underestimate the power of the culture in airsoft. It's one of the things that I think we as a airsoft community have not policed ourselves well over the past 10 years, because I've been playing airsoft for about 15 years now, and the culture used to be very different in airsoft, and we've not policed ourselves well over the past 10 years or so. And so we've allowed this very negative culture to breed that's not what airsoft used to be, and not what will grow the sport and and grow the industry as a whole. So and that goes, that's cheating is one element of that, but there's lots of others as well. It's getting rid of people that are hurting the culture is going to do far more to build your business and your customer base than trying to save one bad apple.
Yeah, there's no reason trying to keep that bad player there. You want to keep the good players there.
Absolutely.
So, next thing I wanted to talk about was, again, going back to BB weight. There are a lot of fields out there where they have a limit. Like, there's a lot of fields, a lot of indoor fields around here that say, well, you can't use above a 0.25 gram BB. Do you think that if we were to move over to measuring in joules rather than FPS, do you think that something like that could be avoided? Because, again, as an HPA user myself, I don't like to go below 3.2s in my HPA gun. So that discourages me from going to those fields. So do you think by getting rid of that limit at a lesser joule, do you think that that would be better or worse for airsoft as a whole?
I'm a little bit I'm a little bit different in terms of my perspective on things. I've been playing airsoft for a long time. I've built a lot of guns. I am not a proponent of super high energies. I think many fields and many game organizers already allow more than is really necessary for good gameplay. The fact of the matter is, you have vastly diminishing returns once you get above, in my experience, once you get above about 1.3 joules or so, the amount more you get for the amount of energy that you're putting out diminishes very quickly. So you might double your energy output and get 10% range. That's not a good return from an efficiency standpoint or from a safety standpoint or anything like that. I do think that that you could raise the BB weights somewhat if you went to chronoing with heavier BBs. It certainly would eliminate a lot of that. I don't think that limiting BB weights to some extent is a completely unreasonable rule. It's at least a decent effort at trying to enforce, trying to control joule limits. So I understand the thought there. I'd rather see chronoing with a little bit heavier BB though, and and controlling it that way, rather than limiting so much what players can use. But on the other hand, does anybody really need to run 0.4s on an indoor field?
Not really.
Not really. I mean, it's just not really necessary. So, I don't know what I'd do if I was running my own indoor field. I don't have one, don't have to make these decisions, but I'd probably limit it more like 3-2s, just chrono everybody with 3-2s, or threes, either one. Take your pick. At chrono everybody with that, and just limit the BB weight there and call it a day. Right? And, it's simple, it's straightforward, and going back to what we were talking about, you have to recognize the fact that the people that are cheating like this are going to cheat no matter what you do. And you just have to be willing to get rid of them. I mean, if I wanted to cheat, I could cheat with any system out there. I don't need a quick change spring guide. I don't need a PTW. I don't need HPA. It's very simple to do to beat a chrono if you're really intent on doing it. To modify the system so that it chronos low, and then in 5 seconds you can have it shooting hotter. So, this is not something that you're going to be able to stop by limiting the hardware. You have to deal with it from a player standpoint, not from a controlling the hardware standpoint so much.
Yeah, that's something that I completely agree with you on, is that it's not the equipment that's the problem, it's that toxic player that's going to use it wrong. Like, I know a lot. Go ahead.
Yeah, you need reasonable precautions, because there are two types of cheaters, right? There's the ones that are the real problems, which are the ones that are going to cheat regardless, right? And then you have the people that are a little bit hot-headed and get frustrated, and if they feel like the other team isn't calling their hits or whatever, then then there's that temptation to to crank up the rate of fire or the velocity or whatever, and try to, because you feel like the other team's cheating. Well, so there are the players like that. And that's really where any sort of tournament locking or hardware controls come in, is keeping people accountable, right? Making it so that it's not unreasonably easy to do. And so that if they do it, they know that they'll get caught, right? So that you have these controls in place so that they can't do it and then immediately swap it back if they see a ref walking around, right? It's something that is difficult enough to do that they know they're going to get caught, so that it's a deterrent from the people that are, hot-headed and, might be tempted to do something rash. You're not going to stop the people that are determined to do it anyway. You're never going to stop those people. There's sort of two different categories as far as I look at it. One's premeditated. You have your premeditated murder versus unpremeditated, right? You have the people planning on it and are going to do it regardless, and you have the people that, they just got mad and did something irresponsible and unsafe, that maybe if they'd had a little more a little more accountability there, it would have prevented them.
Yeah, like with the tournament lock, for example, there are those people that, let's say they catch a couple rounds to the head, they're frustrated, their head hurts now. So they think, oh, I'm going to crank up my FPS and get back at them. So having something like a tournament lock is that reminder that, hey, I shouldn't be doing this. I'm going to get caught and something bad's going to happen to me.
It's no different than all the rest of our lives.
Yeah, exactly.
It's the accountability.
Yeah. Something else that I've noticed that fields do, which I'm personally not a really big fan of, I don't like when fields allow players to chrono with their own magazines that weren't loaded with field-provided BBs. I feel like that's one of those things that I could, like again, those people that came there to cheat. I could have, 0.32 is my gun, and then when I walk up to the chrono, I could be like, yeah, I have 0.2s in there, definitely. And then I get a different. So there are those people that cheat. I think that's just one of those things that would avoid it.
Yeah, I mean, I should have included that earlier. I guess I sort of took that for granted, because it is pretty common now. But yes, if you're gonna chronos, you absolutely should. The field should be providing the BBs at a specified BB weight and chronoing with those, allowing people to provide their own BBs and just take their word on what what BB weight it is just not. That's not a good way of doing things, because even if it's not deliberate, people can heck, we have probably 5 different weights of BBs in our shop here, right? Who's to say I didn't grab the wrong bottle and drop my 3 2s in there when I was intending to pick up the 2 5s, right? And so even apart from the the deliberate cheating mistakes can happen there. So the field should be providing the BBs for chrono. Even if you let the people use their own magazines, just have a speed loader and put 10 field provided BBs in their magazine, top it off when they're getting ready to chrono, and you're good to go. So yes, I absolutely agree with that.
Yeah, that's something that I think would work as well, because I know a lot of counter arguments to that are, well, what if I have some gun that, the field doesn't have a magazine for? Like, what if
Mhm.
I'm running a Scorpion Evo? I don't think a lot of fields would be keeping that, and most of them just keep the standard AK and M4. So I think that by, handing out a thumb loader saying, okay, top off your mag real quick so we can chrono, I think that'd be the better way, because again, it provides accountability and makes sure that everyone's being treated evenly when they're chronoing, and I think it would just avoid some of the major headaches that can come about from this.
Right. Yeah, it's a simple thing to do that keeps everybody on the same page.
Yeah. All right, let me just make sure. Let me check my phone real quick, make sure if I didn't have anything else. All right, yeah. So that was just about everything. So I think I got like one or two more. Um, so going back to what we were talking about what fields can do to make it better for HPA players, are there some things that you've noticed that fields have done that have, unfairly gone against HPA players? Like I know that there are some fields that say, well, HPA players have to play by themselves, which I personally think is pretty dumb. If you just, put in the right precautions, you can make sure that everyone's being safe and having fun. Do you think that HPA is treated unfairly by fields because of things like this? And do you think that it's just, not knowing enough about the system to make the right decisions?
Yeah, I mean, I've seen a number of things that I don't agree with over the years, and some of it's lack of knowledge, a lot of it's lack of knowledge, and just you know field owners not wanting to take the time to learn, or event organizers. And it can be a little bit daunting when you're getting started. When I first started getting into HPA, none of this stuff is complicated, but it's sometimes difficult to find the information and
Mm.
understand what's going on. And I'm coming at it from with an engineering degree as my background, and there's still works some things that I had to learn and work out, terminology and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, I mean, I've seen fields split off HPA to have to play their own, um, play by themselves and not let them play with the larger group. I've seen I've seen them limit HPA users to semi-auto only when everybody else could play full auto. I've seen them put much lower velocity limits on HPA than they do on other you know other systems, and a lot of it, I think, really just comes down to lack of knowledge, and a little bit of fear from not just from the field owners, but from the player base. Sometimes field owners put those things in place to try to sort of pacify players that are upset, and it's one of the things that we've really had to battle is that, HPA has had this negative image attached to it, which is come about a lot from a lot of different elements sort of being combined together. A lot of misinformation, some irresponsibility on the part of people that were promoting it. I think there's quite a bit. One contributing factor to this, ironically, was that in the attempt to sell this technology, there were some people who were making some pretty outlandish claims about it, what it's actually capable of, to the point that a lot of people felt like, a lot of AG users felt like, oh, well, there's no way I could possibly compete with this. It's an unfair advantage. I don't want, so there's a lot of that, which is, ironic that in the attempt to try to promote the technology, it's actually, hurt the reputation. But there's been a lot of things like that. And we've had to work really hard to try to re-educate people to promote the image. And then the last one I was going to add was, it's sort of a social media phenomenon that you get these few people that act completely irresponsibly post some video of themselves using HPA to, light somebody up at ridiculously high rate of fire at point blank range, just doing really irresponsible things. And people, because of social media, what really is just an isolated incident that has happened a handful of times in the entire history of airsoft. To that degree, obviously, people are irresponsible with airsoft stuff all the time, but that kind of like just blatant. This happens very rarely, and it's blown up. It's kind of like the obsession over people being afraid of terrorist attacks and all that kind of stuff. I don't want to die in a terrorist attack more than anybody else, but statistically, your odds of dying in a terrorist attack are non-existent.
Exactly.
But because of social media, because of perception, all of a sudden it's like, oh no, everybody with HPA is out there, lighting people up at 60 rounds per second, and so that hasn't helped either. Just that that sort of out of things get out of perspective on social media. It's really hard to gauge sometimes how much is just how much is real and how much is just hype over a certain issue.
Yeah, like I've noticed that there was a video that probably everyone has seen of someone abusing their HPA engine. And all of a sudden you saw this huge wave of hate towards HPA or the speed softening community. But like you said, that is a isolated incident. The chances of someone doing that is very, very low compared to all the people that use HPA responsibly. And it's that thing where all it takes is that one video to make everyone think that everyone that uses that system or everyone that plays that way is the issue. Like, that's part of the reason why I don't like cheater videos, for example, is that it just blows a small isolated incident out of proportion. And I think it's a little bit silly to try to, flame someone on the internet for something when half the time they probably didn't feel it or anything like that. I feel like it's more of a private matter. But I think that you're absolutely right, is that because of how easy it is to spread information now and the fact that most airsoft players are pretty active on social media, I feel like these really isolated incidents can get blown out of proportion, and then people, they react with emotion. And for a lot of people, they were angry seeing someone abusing a system like that. So their first impulse out of emotion was, well, let's just ban it. Let's just get rid of HPA at our field. And I feel like, and I hope that everyone else that's watching feels like, well, that's not the solution. It would just be easier to put in better precautions to make sure that everyone is able to have a better time. And, you're not telling people, well, you're not welcome because of the system that you own.
And ban the player.
Yeah, just get rid of that. Get rid of that toxic player, and then you don't have to worry about that anymore.
Well, that and the other thing, I don't share videos like that to go around Facebook. People always make a point of sharing these, talking about, and I think a lot of them are well intentioned, like they want to shame this person and like make this so they can't play anymore. And it's well intentioned, but the fact is, people like that are not ashamed about that being shared. They just got 5,000 shares on this stupid YouTube video of them hurting somebody. That makes them feel good inside, right? Because that's who they are as a person. So
I'm going viral now.
Right. I don't share that stuff. I don't encourage it. And at times I've actively posted saying, why are we sharing this stuff? Like, this person was a complete jerk and hurt somebody, or maybe this person was blatantly cheating, but why are we talking about that? All that does is promote a negative image of the industry to anybody, because somebody that doesn't know anything about airsoft, what's going to happen now? They're gonna go, oh, airsoft, this looks interesting. They're gonna get online. What's the first thing they're gonna find?
Someone.
It's not gonna be the videos that has 10 shares of of people being nice to each other and showing good sportsmanship. It's going to be the video that has hundreds or thousands of shares of somebody being a complete tool. And then they go, I don't want anything to do with that. I don't want to get shot like that. And they just take it away. It's like, that's, because that's the first thing they see. So, again, I think sometimes it's well intentioned. It's just misled to people trying to, people sharing stuff like that.
Yeah, I that's something I never really thought of, is that the people that are sharing it, they aren't sharing it because they think it's funny that that person's in pain or whatever. They have good intentions because they want to show that we won't tolerate this in our community. But I feel like at the same time, like you said, they are showing airsoft negatively because these videos do attract a lot of attention online. And just the way that YouTube works, the more watch time that you have, the more likely your video is going to be shown to someone.
Yep.
It creates this negative impact of airsoft and could hesitate people from, getting into our hobby and seeing what it's really about. So I do agree that they have good intentions. I just think that a better way would be through education, showing, hey, this is how a field can avoid this happening. We shouldn't allow this to happen. We should, encourage safe behaviors and safe things that fields can do to make sure that everyone can have a good time in the airsofting field and no one's going to have to go through an experience like that.
And just make a point of sharing positive stuff about it. There's tons of positive stuff that happens in the industry. Make a point of sharing that stuff. Maybe it's not the the catchy thing that is just this is everybody's all excited about, but that's what builds the industry. I watched a video, and I wish I could remember who posted it a while back, but of a guy he was running helmet cam, but he's obviously a more experienced player, and he just showed multiple interactions he had throughout the day with this young kid that it was obviously their first time out there, and he was doing all sorts of stuff to help this kid, showing him how his gun worked, helping him get things set up, helping him play on the field. And that kind of stuff is what airsoft is all about. But it doesn't get people's attention, right? And, so make a point to share the positive stuff and just refuse to engage in that, sort of negative, toxic atmosphere. Because like you said, social media algorithms, it doesn't matter whether you said that, hey, this is terrible, people should never do this, or you said, hey, this is great, this is awesome. The social media algorithm doesn't care. It's going to feed it to more people. So you have to kind of get smart about how we interact with our technology, not let our emotions run away with us.
Yeah, I know exactly which video you're talking about. And that's the type of stuff that we should be showing off in Airsoft. We should show it as, a friendly community that is, because we need new players. If we want to continue to have Airsoft grow, we need to have newer players. And a lot of times those are younger players out there, the people who are in that 10 to 15 years old who, don't know much about this. They're just getting into it. It's their first time playing. So why wouldn't you want to help grow the community by helping those people out? I know there are a lot of people out there that don't like younger people playing for whatever reason, but you have to remember, without them, our hobby doesn't grow. And if our hobby doesn't grow, eventually it's going to die out. And then there aren't going to be as many fields, not as many stores, and everything's just going to crumble. So all it takes is, share these positive things online. It's going to help show Airsoft in a better light out in the public. It's going to show it as more of a safe thing to do. And overall, it's just going to help the hobby as a whole grow. It's going to help the player base grow. It's going to help companies grow. And overall, I mean, there's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah. And be that person, be that person out on the field. I mean, Airsoft used to be way more about that. It used to be, I can remember even when I was probably 17, 18 at the time, but I'd been playing for a few years already. And, we'd go out to a local field and, you'd have all the 13 and 14-year-olds out there that, didn't know what they were doing and didn't have the best equipment. And, we'd get a bunch of them together and round them up and start giving them directions and, ordering them around the field, getting them involved in the game rather than just having them sit behind a bunker and, hide until somebody come and shot them. Right. Getting them involved, because I mean, the thing is, a lot of those kids, and this is getting past Airsoft, this is getting into them personally. A lot of times those kids really need, they need role models. They need a support network. That I know tons of kids that have that are in Airsoft that don't necessarily come from great family situations. They're looking for a community to be part of. They're looking for support, and so giving them that can make a huge impact on their life. Not just, I mean, yes, it'll keep them in Airsoft, but it makes a huge impact on their life far beyond what I think we really give it credit for sometimes. Giving them a positive supportive community to be part of, really does, it gives them a second family that they can have good examples from people that are older than they are, and they can have a good support network to, a community to be part of. So I think it's really important, and I think it's something that I know some people. I know some people in airsoft that do an absolutely fantastic job of that. But I think it's something we would all bear. It bears us all, being more, giving more attention to stuff like that, and really trying to support the player base and encourage these younger kids coming up, because like you said, and most of us started there, right? Most of us started when we were just kids, and we had people that mentored us. And I think we forget that sometimes, and we get annoyed that they're not, they're not executing, tactical movements correctly, and they're giving away our position, and so we get all frustrated and whatever. And instead of really encouraging them that they're out there, they're the minority, not sitting on a couch, wasting their life away in front of a TV. They're out there playing. We should be encouraging that. That's a good thing. Getting out there, exercising, interacting with people, something that our modern technology has driven us away from. They're actually out there being part of a community, doing something. We should be encouraging that, not discouraging it by belittling them because they don't have the right gear, the right gun, or the right camo, whatever it is. It's we're out there to have fun. Let's have fun.
Exactly, and that's how I was. I mean, I started airsoft when I was probably 10, 11 years old, and some of the people that I've met through airsoft, they're still some of my best friends today, even outside of the hobby. So by giving these younger players, by helping them out, by helping them get into it, they're going to be able to go outside. They're going to be able to get better, because it's not very much fun hiding behind the bunker. But all it takes is someone to show them the way. And I think that that's something that a lot of us haven't really seen in a while in airsoft, because there are a lot of people out there, again, with how toxic the internet can be and how fastly those things can spread. I mean, there are people out there who are saying, "Oh, you don't own a full cry kit. You're not a real airsoft."
Oh, don't get me
Or
started.
whatever. So it's like, oh, all it takes is even just some of us helping, embracing these newer players, because without them, our community won't grow and airsoft won't survive and grow the way that we all would like it to. I mean, I can't think of a single airsofter that doesn't want airsoft to grow and to be better and to have more people in it. So all it takes is a couple of minutes to, make these
Yep.
people feel welcomed in our community, maybe show them a thing or two, because, they probably got into airsoft by watching one of these more viral videos. It was positive. Most of the popular gameplays today are like sniper gameplays, for example. So, bring them into the reality of airsoft. Show, well, yeah, you're not going to be sitting around getting a 40 kill streak. Well, let's show you how to have fun in
Right.
airsoft, not in a way that's been highly edited down to make the player look way better than they actually are.
Yeah, there's a few of those going around.
Yeah. So, was there anything else you wanted to add for today's video?
No, not in particular. I appreciate you. I appreciate you giving me a chance to get on here. It's this is even obviously we're an HPA company, and that this element is something. It's something that we want to get out there, the education and all that kind of stuff. But honestly, I think that promoting positivity and cooperation in airsoft, rather than the sort of uh, toxic competitiveness. And I say that because I'm extremely competitive. I'm as competitive as any person you'll ever meet. But you have to, there's a different type of toxic competitiveness, both in our industry and in the player base. And we really need to, we really need to promote that, whether we're talking about different types of technology, with HPA versus AEG, or whether we're talking about different, player bases and play styles. You have the Milsim guys make fun of the Speedsoft guys, and whatever it is, we need to get past this, sort of toxic environment, and really promote positivity and promote the fun that can be had in airsoft, because there's so many people, I think, that the sport has so much more potential than it's actually at right now. If people actually, if we pull together as a community and really focus on working together, on teamwork, on sort of the positive, many positive aspects of airsoft. There's a lot of potential out there, and there's a lot of kids that could benefit from it. And I think that's really, really important things to talk about. So thanks for having me on today.
Of course. Thank you very much for being on today. I really do appreciate it. If you guys are a member of if you either run a field yourself or you're just a staff member and you have questions about HPA, reach out to one of these companies. Reach out to Wolverine. I am sure that you guys would love to help educate and make airsoft more fun and safe for everyone out there. And if you're a player looking for your own HPA equipment, as a player myself, I would highly recommend Wolverine Airsoft's products. I own 2 Inferno Gen 2s. I am in love with them. They work fantastically. I've never had any issues with them. But that's going to do it for today's video, guys. Thank you so much for staying until the end of this discussion. I know it's a little bit different than the content that we regularly do here on the channel, but I do appreciate you staying until the end. If this was your first time here, I'd love it if you joined our community by hitting that subscribe button down below for new educational content every Tuesday and Friday. This has been Lane from the BB Warrior with Wolverine Airsoft, talking about safety and HPA and how we can make airsoft, more fun and more enjoyable for everyone. And we will see you all next time. All right, so that is going to do it. I'll just cut off right here. Rich, I really do want to thank you so much for coming on today. It really does mean a lot to me.
Oh, no problem. Just let us know, let us know when it goes up, and we'll go ahead and give it a share as well. Try to help you get some more followers as well.
Of course. Thank you very much. I'll probably start editing this today and probably have it ready for Friday's video. But as soon as I have it done, I'll send it over to you guys. But again, thank you so much for staying on, and I hope you enjoy the rest of your day.
All righty, you too. Take care, man.
Thank you. Bye.